welcome to Tech Simplified. And today we gonna have a blast on the podcast. I got two outstanding people that you have to know. Man, this is great, man. I'm pretty excited to talk to you guys today. So let me do a brief introduction because it won't do it justice, but at least get this conversation started. So us twins, Anna and Kerry, were used to being mistaken for one another. But it wasn't until they started their job search that they realized that they looked identical on paper too. They both graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degrees in engineering from Stanford. Yes, you heard me right, Stanford. And both have worked stints at Google and McKinsey, despite having very different interests, talents, and experience. They also realized that it isn't just a problem for twins, and millions of job seekers are overlooked every year because of traditional hiring methods are woefully inadequate. That led them to found their tech startup, Searchlight AI, where over 6 years they have developed their own AI models, went through Y Combinator, and raised funding from the best VCs in the world, and sold. Yes, you heard that right. Sold their startup to Multiverse in just 3 months ago. And there's so much more I can share with you guys, but I'm not going to steal their thunder. Anna and Kerry, welcome to my podcast. And I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us, Lai.
All right. And the pleasure is all mine. Before we talk about all the goodness, let's talk about the beginning. Let's talk about how did you even know to get to Stanford? Who are the people who set the building blocks for you? Because I want to talk about that because as a parent, we always hear about these great stories, but I like to know how that started, right? Who would you say inspired you both the most?
I'll jump in. Carrie and I grew up the daughters of two immigrants in Southern California, and watching our parents take a huge leap of faith and come to the United States in pursuit of a higher education, it really imbued in us the value of hard work and the willingness to really take a bet on yourself to make the impact that you want in the world. So both of our parents, I'm so grateful. My dad has a PhD in organic chemistry, and our mom has a PhD in chemistry. And so right away from an early age, they believed in us and pushed us to really be the best that we could be academically. Beyond our parents, being Carrie's sister is certainly also a big motivator for me because over the years, we have really pushed each other to maximize our potential and to really strive for a better life. And then finally, grateful for our teachers. We went to public schools our whole life. And we're very lucky that at each stage, I can really point to folks who saw our potential and really encouraged us to keep going.
Yeah, I think that plus one to everything Anna said, and just a particular story about our dad, right? As an example of someone who came to the United States and couldn't really speak English. And yet ultimately right now he's a head of R&D at Abbott. And how did he get there, right? As someone who was constantly underestimated as he was here speaking in an accent that people couldn't really understand, he did decide to take a bet on himself. He decided to join a really small startup, like really pretty much early on in his career, and stuck with that. And he himself got acquired at his initial startup to a bigger biotech company that was ultimately acquired by Abbott, which is one of the biggest biotech companies in the world. And so a lot of times, especially when we think about women in tech as a group of people who are constantly underestimated, a lot of times just taking that bet on yourself and going down that riskier path could ultimately lead to you being in positions that would be harder to get into otherwise.
Well said, Carrie. I think what you said is very understood. That betting on yourself is critical, right? Because I'm similar to you. My parents immigrated from Barbados, and my mom and my dad always tell me, "Hey, Sly, we immigrated to give you, your brother, and your sister a better opportunity, education here in America. But you're gonna have to work hard, and you're gonna have to work harder than everyone else because they didn't have those same type of opportunities. And even to this day, my brother is one of my guiding light, my sister, my guiding light, 'cause I'm the youngest, and they feel me to move forward. So I see that competitive drive, and you're right, having those right people who see that potential in you and say, hey, push forward. hey, Sly, why aren't you pushing yourself a little bit further? We know you can do more. Why aren't you doing it? Right. And that helped me learn and understand. So now you do well, you do great in junior high school, you do great in high school. Now you get to Stanford where the talent pool, it has to be pretty competitive. How did you stay focused on it? Like, how did you make sure that you not only excelled in academically, but then you also excelled at the extra activities? And I'm assuming that's what pushed you into entrepreneurship. Can you talk through that journey for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel I was really lucky. It was in my high school years that I spent a summer interning at the Stanford School of Medicine. And I was there as a junior high student. And there was something in the air where there's something about the culture at Stanford where they truly tell you you can do anything, which I believe is actually just a mindset that is maybe the most valuable thing I took from Stanford is that mindset that you can do anything and you can go and innovate and really do things that can change the world. Going into Stanford, I think I would be really fortunate. I'll say Anna and I have both said in the past that our high school academic curriculum was harder than Stanford academic curriculum, which is saying something about how hard our high school was. So that set us up, right? Once we got to Stanford, we did take the hard classes. We graduated with our undergrad and master's within 5 years. But it gave us more time and bandwidth to do the extracurriculars that I do think were what set us up for success. In particular, Stanford is quite known for its project-based or entrepreneurship classes. There's one that in particular stands out for me. I know Anna has one that she can share too. But I took a class called Design for Extreme Affordability in the Stanford D School, and it was a 2-quarter long class. And in that class, my team actually worked with the Smile Foundation, and we were designing a new type of orthodontic device for a community in Mexico. And we were constrained with, for example, the cost it could be for that community to be able to purchase a new device, things like that. And so just being in a class where our goal was to think about building a product, but not only build a product, launch it into a community in a way that it's used and thinking through the business model of that, et cetera. It was so instrumental. So again, just what I found the most valuable thing about Stanford was the stuff that took us outside the classroom.
Yeah, Carrie really captured it well. I think growing up, we very fortunately understood that the greatest lessons in life are often not learned in the classroom. It's learned outside of the classroom. And starting from high school, Carrie with her research at Stanford and myself with my own extracurriculars, I actually dove deeply into political science and loved writing, which is different, right? Because I started to focus more on engineering in college. But I think having a strong foundation that stretched beyond just the academics and what we learned in class set us up to bring that curiosity to Stanford and understand, okay, what is it about this environment? What is it about these people that we can learn from beyond just what's in a textbook? And in general, as a founder, that served us very well because you have to constantly be learning, continually be reinventing yourself in order to be successful.
You said it so well. Like I always say, always be learning. That's the tagline for Tech Simplified, right? Is to be learning. Like I saw my parents run small businesses growing up. And I was also always asking myself, how could I help? How could I make it better? It might be something. My brother owned a lot of property. I'm like, hey, I found someone online that had windows a little bit cheaper. And it seemed like they can install it anytime because I know he's working and doing both. This would be someone you can install it. It might cost a little bit of money up front, but it's going to save you money on heating and cooling. And then in school, I was a poet. I like to write poetry. I do spoken word. And then I did that in high school. And then almost graduated in junior year and just took college classes in senior year in high school. And then when I went to college, I switched. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be an English major. If this ain't gonna solve some of the problems I have, let me switch to business. When I switched to business school, I ended up starting marketing and tech because I found a lot of my techs, they didn't really understand why the soft skills, the business skills, why are we doing this? They knew the widgets, they knew how to fix it, but they didn't know what problems are we solving. So then outside of school, I remember I started businesses in college, right, to help me round out some of my just my knowledge set. So everything you're saying in terms of you got to be a student, you got to have the curiosity, you got to have the drive, but you also need to pair that with like how you said, I wish I had a course like that helped me build a tool that was more affordable because then that helps you solve problems a little bit more effectively, right? Instead of solving problems for the economic value that you're going to get when you sell it, you're solving actual problems. People I meet who have business ideas that I'm like, who wants this? So that's pretty cool that you said that, Carrie. I think that's something that's very understated that I think before you even have an idea, who's going to benefit from this?
100%. I do think the best ideas come from constraints.
Okay.
Apply constraints, and then you'll find that you'll come up with something more innovative than you could have before if you thought you could have all resources in the
Yeah.
world. I do want to emphasize the always be learning point. I think that is just such an important life philosophy in general. And I really want to quantify that for us, which is I subscribe to this methodology like 1% better every day. It does two things. Number one, if we had this mentality of 1% better every day, even the inevitable mistakes that we make in our day to day, it's easier to put that behind because you just say tomorrow's a new day. And tomorrow I'm going to be 1% better than today, which is very feasible, right? It's only 1%. But then secondly, it's all about compounding improvement. If you are 1% better every single day for 1 year, by the end of the year, you are 37 times better than when you started.
And that's amazing. I think I'll go finish your thought, Carrie.
I'll just say it's 37 times, right? If you try to take down 37 times improvement immediately, it seems impossible. But if you invest in that incremental learning every single day over a sustained period of time, it's inevitable that you're going to get there.
I think I like to use the analogy. I'm like, if you like eating pizza, if you try to fold up that whole pizza and put it in your mouth, it's hard. But when you carve it up into slices and take a little bite, you can eat the whole pizza. You might feel a little sick after, but you can definitely eat that whole pizza. And I remember when I was out of school, I'm like, all right, I'm okay good one from an IT standpoint, but I'm like, I want to get better at communicating. So I was like, what if I read 100 books, right? Well, I travel a lot to work. What if I listen to some of those books and consume? If I consume 100 books a year, how much better could I be? What if I had 100 new conversations? What if I actually started going to more meetups and talking to people and going different areas to make me more challenged? Like even starting this podcast, was out of my comfort zone. What would I learn? And I saw how I started seeing new opportunities open, getting 1% better, investing in myself, or even let's be an adapt, man. Is there so many things that you can get better on? Like I find things like I like garden. My daughter loves to garden, so I had to go figure out how to do that. That's completely different than what I do in tech. I'm terrible at it. Or swimming. My daughter can swim way better than I can. So every day, like we go in the pool and we swim and just try to get better. And I try to take that to my whole entire life is how can I be better? Like from a better son, a better father, a better just human being. That's where this podcast even came. How could I, shed the light on amazing women like yourself and you can share those stories to help just one more person. If one person listens to this and say, Sly, listen to Anna, listen to Kerry, help me solve the problem, I'm good, right? These are the things I like to do. So I'm glad you shared that because that 37%, we got 37% better in a year, right? You know how great you would be over time?
Actually, it's even better than that, Fly. It's
Yeah.
30 times,
Okay.
3,700%.
Yeah.
How much you get better in a year. So that's even bigger. And speaking about that, the role model, like just seeing one person who can do it, I'm very fortunate that for so much of my life, that person was Anna, being my older sister, even if only by 2 minutes, carving the path. And so just, again, like always looking out for role models, seeing if one person can do it, like why not me? Like that absolutely is something I encourage everyone to be thinking about.
And that's great, man. I think I told you before we started the show is my older brother, same thing. He's 13 years older than me, right? So he always pushed me to get better. He always pushes me, even when I think I did something cool. I think you could have did it a little bit better. Take a step back. How did you think about this? Because he's more on the sales and finance side. So he solves problems very black. Like, did you make money with your podcast yet? Then it ain't a business, it's a hobby, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Where I'm looking at it more creatively or different areas, but I realized he, was my motivation in addition to my mom and dad to get better, to do these things. So I definitely love that. So now you're doing great at Stanford. You're walking across the stage, and now you're looking at what's next for your life. What was going through each of your minds? Because I remember we talked. You said this is the first time after selling your company having a full-time job. How was that? Was you afraid? Was you scared? How did you prepare yourself for that mindset to go down that direction?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. The benefit of always having this mentality of growing is that at the point of decision on whether or not we would actually go and take full-time jobs at McKinsey versus take venture funding from YC and start a company, for us, it was not an easy decision, but it became clear what the right choice was once we came back to our core values. And I do remember Carrie and I were sitting in a car at night, really debating this on, do we take which fork in the road? And ultimately, it came down to, we were 22 years old. Which path is going to teach us the most? And which path was scarier? And we ended up taking the scarier path because we knew that we would end up somewhere greater than if we took a more structured and known. And that played out. So I would say, even though there was certainly uncertainty, ambiguity, and a little bit of fear, that it was precisely for those qualities that we decided to pursue starting Searchlight. And each step of the way, reminding ourselves of why we took that initial fork in the road led us to continue persisting and pushing through, honestly, quite a challenging 6-year arc when we think about the macroeconomic climate and how that changed over the past 6 years. Continuing to return back to our values has helped us continue down the path.
That's amazing. And Kerry, I saw you just come off mute. Did you have anything to add to that?
I would say Anna just put it so well. The one thing I want to acknowledge is, in addition to it, is just to be real about the financial trade-offs of a decision to either take a full-time job or start something brand new, and take a risk and take a bet. And I think it's a very real trade-off. Anna and I were privileged to be able to make that trade-off, to say, you know what, we are going to not go after a stable paying job and actually bet on ourselves and actually start working for our own startup. And we didn't even pay ourselves for the first 6 to 12 months. So that is something that I think we're really privileged to be able to do, and something I want everyone to consider as they think about going after their own thing. And for us, while we were very fortunate to have worked to a point where we got that exit and had that financial reward delayed after 6 years, that wasn't guaranteed in the very beginning. And for those who are a little bit worried about that financial trade-off, I will just want to add that one thing I want to share is, after you start a business, even if it doesn't work out, let's say Anna and I did not get that acquisition, we still ended up with skills that made us much more attractive on the job market. And so it would be, I would say, anyone who starts a business and goes after it and really puts in the effort to learn and grow it for a few years, even if the business doesn't end up working out, you will get a well-paying job because your skills are just all that much more marketable and valuable to another company.
Yeah, I think you said it well, because those skills that, making decisions, having a P&L, being able to lead teams. And also when we talk is, I can tell that your soft skills are great, but both of y'all are very technical, right? So the skills you had to do to build that on your own, right? And then you was talking about AI before it was quote unquote sexy, the cool thing, before there was language models that I could just tie into, because you built your own, right? So that's pretty cool, right? So how did you do that? How did you balance that, having the soft skills and the technical skills? And then how did you divvy up those tasks between the two of you, because y'all both the founders? How was that?
I served as co-founder CTO at Searchlight, and in the very beginning, Carrie and I, we coded the initial version of Searchlight. And I had a vision of what needed to be in place from a data perspective and to enable AI. And not many businesses get that right from day one, but we did. And that actually accelerated the way that we were able to build our own proprietary models ahead of the big market moment that we experienced in 2023 and 2024. Carrie split off once we raised our early funding and started going to sales, whereas I continued to essentially code the initial version of Searchlight by myself. But then once we got that to a stable place, the technical skills, I'd argue, for me, wasn't as important as the soft skills, because I had to learn at quite a young age how to inspire, how to recruit, which essentially means convincing people who are way smarter to take a bet on us, to come work with us, and to build this startup out of nothing. And what I learned is that actually an individual, no matter how strong they may be technically as an IC, will never get as much done as a incredibly motivated, driven team of people who are collectively creating this amazing brain trust. So I actually want to give a huge thanks to our team, all the Searchlighters, past and present, who contributed their hard work to our vision. And it was a big lesson for me because it wasn't about being the smartest engineer in the room, right? That's enough to get us started. But to build a tremendous company, it's about being a great leader. And that's what I want to encourage everybody to think about, which is beyond technical skills, how are you investing in yourself and your ability to communicate and to lead?
Oh, that's great. And Kerry, did you have anything else you want to add there? Because I don't know if you can follow what Anna did, because that was great. Pretty spot on.
I can't follow that. Next question, please.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what you just said there. I think that's the hard part when you're so used to perform at a high level, letting go and realizing that as a founder, your job is to lead, right? Hire people who are specialized in those, who love doing those things so you can focus on helping grow the business collectively. So that's great that you was able to make that transition. It's taken me a while to let go, but you don't have to be a solopreneur and do everything yourself. This year, I think even for this podcast, I have people who edit. I got people who edit the videos I got PR people who do the other things right now. And I'm not doing everything anymore. And it's okay because I got to work on building that business. So Anna, that's cool. Kerry, that's really cool. And you're right. If you got that brain trust, you can solve problems faster because you look at problems differently. So that's pretty cool. So next now, you're in the midst of it, going through the highs and lows from the pandemic, the boom with AI, and now you have successfully sold your company. How did that feel? And what's next? What's next for you guys?
We feel all the feels in selling a business. There's so much. There's pride in all that we were able to accomplish, right? There's no greater validation that we did building something valuable with another company acquiring the technology and the people, that the team that we assembled. There is like sadness in closing a chapter of our lives, right? And building something, and now we're handing it off. It's like almost like our baby has graduated. Our 6-year-old baby has graduated. It's not going into its teenage years in another company. But at the end of the day, just so much gratitude because really, as Anna said, we couldn't have done it alone. We learned every single day, and it took other people believing in us as well, and helping us get to where we are right now. So just we feel everything. And in terms of what's next, what Anna and I are was now we're leaders at Multiverse. One of the biggest reasons why we decided being acquired by Multiverse was the best thing for us is that they're at a scale where our technology now can go to 100 times more people and impact much more in the world. And that's what we want. And that's what really appealed to us. And so that's what we're really hard at work doing, right? Now I'm leading the product line of Searchlight within this big organization, bringing it out to the major companies out there. And Anna is the head of AI, also building the AI using exactly what you described before, which is the principles full stack of making sure we not only design the right models, but are structuring, collecting the data in the right way. She's also applying that as the head of AI within the larger organization.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like how you said you're feeling all the feels because again, it's a new chapter. You're proud of it. You're sad. And now you're on to that next emotion. And I already can tell your parents are extremely proud of you. Y'all went in the deep end and you survived. You came out better shaped and you changed lives of the people who were working with you too. And you're going to continue to do that. So that's amazing. So before we get to the end of this podcast, and I could talk to you both all day, what's any good books or podcasts or anything that's top of mind that you think was really that stood out for you in your career that you could share with some of my followers?
Wow, actually, I have been looking at podcasts and reading more books. And besides yours, Sly, some podcasts that I really recommend include Lenny Richitsky's ones, where he talks about a diverse array of topics with amazing product leaders. Anything from career advice to very tactical advice, like how to build a team. Secondly, I've really enjoyed sci-fi recently because of the lesson around not just how technology will shape the world, but also what is the role of humanity in shaping that technology. So I recently have been reading short stories by Ted Chiang in Exhalation and Stories of Your Life and Others. Really recommend that.
We carry anything on your end?
For me, books on leadership have really resonated. And one of them in particular, I actually asked at one point my entire team at Search to read it. It's called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And it really talks actually about a career of a man who was first a football coach and then a very successful executive in tech. But ultimately, the main message is that we all want to be successful, right? We all are working towards great outcomes and a great business exit and all that. But we can't control those outcomes. What we can control is the input. Like, for example, the desire to learn every single day, the persistence, getting knocked down and coming back up, the stories that you tell your employees, inspiration, all the leadership things, just those are the building blocks that are within our control. And the score takes care of itself.
Well, that's great. Those are some two good books. I'm going to add that to my few of those books to my rotation and those podcasts. Take a look. I guess the last book I will leave, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. That was a book for me. Sounds cheesy, but it's so right. Like I remember this making switch. What made me a good individual contributor actually makes me a bad owner, right? Because you need to be able to scale like I talked about in this call, right? I'm realizing now, how do you change those things, right? Now I even know what made me a good, me and my wife being together, does that make us great parents? No, it's some things you gotta do a little bit different there. It's very generic, but it helps me like when I go to the different stages in my life. Am I holding on to past notions that no longer suit me anymore? Do I need to make those changes? Do I need to adopt better practices? But that goes back to learning yourself, learning others, and continue learning and improving yourself overall. And I saw Anna, you came off of mute. You had anything to add there?
Yeah, I would just add that the number one learning is that we're always reinventing ourselves.
Ooh, mic drop right there, man. Anna, you coming with the fire today. That's true. That's a great thing that you shared there. Last question is, I know my audience is gonna want to get in contact with you. What's the best ways for them to reach out to you on? What platform?
For me, LinkedIn, I check it pretty regularly. Please do reach out. But when you do reach out, please drop like a quick note saying, hey, I saw you on Slide podcast. And that way I can prioritize reaching back out.
We
Same. I'm under Anna X Wang on LinkedIn.
all right, sweet. I don't want this podcast to end because I know you boiled it down into the highlight reel, and I know we could go deeper on each section, but that's all the time I got with you both. It was outstanding. I want to give a shout out to your parents. They did an amazing job. And as a father with a daughter, and I got a son on the way, and I have my other son, I got another son on the way. Man, your parents inspired me, man. I'm taking the script out their book and try to do that to my children as well. And I can only imagine when you have your children one day. Thanks for being on the podcast. Learned so much. Sly Gittins is out. Always be learning and growing. And make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. Until next time, out. Peace.